All right, we are live Friday night, week 9, I believe it is. College Football Corner, Fletch and Randy here together to spell it all out, talk about last week and talk about this week. So we'll start off with last week first, real quick. Let's do some homework. Facebook, YouTube, give us a like, ring the bell, and also give us a subscribe so you can keep up with us on YouTube. Join the chat if you want. We're live. We'll put you in there. If you got something you want to say or something you want to talk about, questions you want to ask, we are here for you. So last week was pretty interesting. What are your takeaways from last week?
Well, of course, a couple. Probably the biggest game was Texas and Georgia. And we both kind of thought that that would be a heavyweight bout, and it kind of started out that way. We kind of leaned towards the home team, maybe having the advantage, but boy, man, Georgia just really just took it to them. Little bit, I mean, a little bit of a surprise being at Texas, and um, man, that defense for Georgia was just unbelievable. They were just all over. So I mean, obviously, the matchup with the when it came to line play, the defense versus offense, Georgia was obviously had a huge advantage there. But neither quarterback to me played great.
True.
That's the one thing about Carson Beck. He seems to be okay or not so good. And I kind of liked it when they brought Arch Manning in. I thought, man, come on, light it up, do something fantastic. But it didn't matter who was in there because I mean, when you don't have time to, you don't have time to set your feet. You're just not going to be able to do much, So that game was, of course, our marquee game that we had listed. So, that's the one that I bring up first.
Yeah, my first impressions of that was, man, Georgia's like just shooting themselves in the foot in the beginning of that game, but yet they got the lead, and then Texas just couldn't do anything with those turnovers. I can't remember how many times Georgia, I think, turned the ball over, and then Texas couldn't get any points out of it. I think
Right.
it was 2 or 3 in the first half.
Yep.
I was like, man, this is, and then like you said, just as you watch that game, I'm like, wow, I feel like I'm watching Georgia from about 2-3 years ago. This defense is just, I can't remember who number 11 is, but he was in the backfield more than Ewers was.
Yeah.
It
Oh yeah,
was
he was.
it was an impressive had scheme they had going. I remember one where they were lined up kind of in your normal 3 or 4 down with linebackers, and then 2 seconds before they snapped the ball, they shifted and all the linebackers came up, and it was like we press,
Oh yeah.
just like that, and then they snapped the ball because they just had it down. They were dialed up, and it looked
They
like
were.
Texas was not prepared for what was coming from that one, and it was ugly. I feel like if they play again, it wouldn't be like that. I'm not saying who's going to win or lose. I don't know, but that was crazy. That was a night Georgia was dialed in, and let's go ahead and talk about that pass interference. At the end of that game, Texas picked off Carson Beck, took it back to the 9, and they
Yeah.
called it pass interference
Right.
on Texas,
Right.
and they walked out, put spotted the ball and everything, and then they went to commercial, and it came back, and it was beer bottles or whatever, So the next thing you know,
Oh yeah.
they overturned it, and it was going to Texas, which is pretty unheard of. You can't what is it? Replay pass interference. It's not replayable. It's not reviewable, and all this. So, how did they get there? And then somebody, I thought I heard this week that they said they made the wrong call. He meant to say defense pass interference, had offense pass interference, and I don't know about that because they marked
Right.
off the ball and everything. So
Yeah.
that was weird. And even Kirby Smart said that was where they tried to get us however they could with bad calls and everything, but they were dialed in. And so Texas goes to Vanderbilt this week. And did you hear that Vanderbilt put up a huge net over the visiting section? So if they throw anything, it won't make it to the field.
Well, yeah. Good for them. I mean, that was yeah, that was absolutely crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a bad call, and but I mean, how many times do we see a bad call?
Oh yeah.
Every
Every
freaking
week.
game.
Every
Every
week. Every game.
every
Every
week,
week.
every
Every game.
game, sometimes multiple. I mean, just read, what the heck are you looking at? So
Yep.
if for them to overturn that after the guy already called it, and then to say, well, he said that, that's not what he's seen or whatever. I heard a whole bunch of different stories of how that went, but basically the only reason it got overturned was because all the Texas fans throwing all the crap on the field, and they had this big long delay, and all of a sudden you're going to reverse this call. I mean, I didn't agree with it. It was probably the right call. Some people are going to say, well, that's what you want, the right call. Well, I watch, like we just said, I watch games every week, and they don't.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Hey, that was horrible call, man. We're going to change that. I had never seen that.
And some are saying the precedent has now been set. If you're a home team and some doesn't go call your way, and then start chucking stuff on the field, and don't be surprised. None of us will be if that starts happening. And I mean, they'll have to start. It's just nuts. They should have just, like always before, no matter what happens, boo birds galore. You never overturn the call. I mean, especially after you've walked, even if you know you made the wrong call, you eat it and go on, because you can't do that, because especially with them throwing a lot of stuff on the field, having a timeout called, Sark's out there telling people to calm down. It's not. And I'll be honest with you, I think we both agree, it didn't even look like pass interference. The right call was probably for Texas to have the ball, but they called it wrong, and we have seen that when it's really wrong, like that. It's just the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Bad calls are bad calls. You got to move on, but they should never overturn that call.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. And like I said, I mean, you're right. They did kind of set the precedence for, doing that kind of thing. And that was really just, I mean, that was ridiculous. I was kind of surprised they didn't throw, an unsportsmanlike thing on Texas for, everything that was going on. I mean, they can do that, when things are out of control like that. But I mean, basically, no, call was wrong. Texas ball at the 9-yard line, and
that looked like a lot like something you would probably have figured would have happened back maybe the 1950s or something. Wrong call goes the Homer way. The whole Homer stuff, no TVs and all that. Oops. But yeah, it was. That was nuts. Of course, they fined them afterwards. They fined the school, but that stuff. I thought there used to be certain penalties. Maybe I'm thinking of the pros where if it keeps going, it goes against the home team or whatever. Maybe I'm thinking of another sport. I don't know, but that needs to be what happened. You keep chucking that stuff, they're going to start marking yards off against the home team just to get them to stop. So, and they're supposed to use facial recognition to start trying to pinpoint who was doing what and try to.
Oh yeah,
I don't know how that's going to work, if it is at all, but I think I haven't heard anything of that since Monday, so I think that's probably just fake news.
Well, I think the fine was for rushing the field after the game.
I thought I was throwing the bottles. Okay, so rushing the field. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was for rushing the field. Right. They tried to tear the goalpost down and stuff, but they were. I think it was for rushing the field. I could be wrong, but
you might be right. I might have read that wrong. So, which makes it even worse. They can do all that and they'll get fined, but they rush the field, they get fined, which is a NCAA thing, I think. So
yeah, it was 200. Yeah, it's 250,000. Yeah, it might have been for throwing. I'm not exactly sure about it. One or the other, though. Either way, but it was that was a crazy thing, and like I said, if you want to get all the calls right, well, then go review all of them and look at it, and because some of them you're going to go, wow, what the heck am I looking at? Because I've seen that was bad. I've seen worse.
Absolutely, they're pros and college alike. And I hate bad calls as much as anybody else does. I hate them when they go against my team like anybody else would. But the last thing I want to see is, I think we're seeing too many reviews anyways, especially with the targeting. Every time somebody does anything, they pull out the thing, look at target, all that. And I think targeting needs to really get to the point to where they call it and it's a penalty, but stop kicking the kids out of the game unless it is just literally so like a punch. You don't need to review when somebody punches somebody unless it's a melee. They just take way too much time with this targeting, and sometimes it's both guys drop their head, but the one guy with the ball never gets targeting, but the other guy, and I just think it's nuts. It was fine a few years ago when they instilled it. Most people know what's going on. I think now they're mostly accidents. They're not people really trying to kill anybody, so to speak, or hurt anybody. The whole kicking the kids out, I think, is just run its course. I really think they need to keep that, get rid of that part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it doesn't have to be helmet to helmet now.
Oh yeah.
Actually, the one Georgia guy got thrown out. It was nowhere, it wasn't helmet to helmet. Well, but he lowered his head, the crown of the helmet, and all that stuff.
It was hit him right in the chest.
Yeah, and then the other one was up on the shoulder pad. I mean, yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it hit his helmet here, but I could see a launching yourself kind of thing.
Right. Right.
It's but you're running around and you're making a big hit on a guy. I just it's gotten ridiculous. It really has. But
And
both
the
of those,
weird
I was
thing
kind of like,
is,
I was kind of surprised at the one that they came back and said, it was targeting because they
yeah.
didn't call targeting.
Right.
It
They
was sit
looked at it
down.
afterwards.
Yeah, it was
I
sit
think they
down
called a
from the
timeout or something. Next thing you know, they're looking at it, which,
yeah
the
from the
thing
what
about a running back can go in and lower his head and use the crown of his helmet to go in through it, and it's like, how's that any different than another guy lowering the head trying to make a tackle? I mean,
yeah.
when a dude lowers his head, he's trying to blow you out of his way. He runs him over. That's great, but he's used. So I don't know. I mean, helmet to helmet, I'm all for that because that's.
Sure.
But the whole thing is about the brain and the head and everything.
Yeah,
But
the helmet thing, the launching yourself,
right,
that kind. Yeah, absolutely. But it's gone way past
yeah,
that. It's gotten so ridiculous.
yeah.
And then
Now it's defenseless receivers, and
yeah,
I had a long time ago. I went and saw Indiana in Ohio State at IU. This is the Tressel days, and Ted Ginn took one to the house on a punt to kickoff return, and it was Ted Ginn, so it wasn't even close. It was IU from the 90s or whatever, 2000s, and it was Ted Ginn. So, and they called it back because of a defenseless player got blocked, on the kickoff return. It wasn't an illegal block as far as behind the back or clipping. It was just defenseless player. And I stood up and I said, the whole Indiana team is defenseless players. Because Indiana was nobody back then. There's somebody now, but so yeah, the defenseless player thing is what kills me. A guy's going up for a catch, and you're not allowed to drill him anymore. When you used to be able to drill and try to jar the ball loose, now he's defensive player and stuff. So it's no surprise, and this is what's going down, and this is why points are up and defenses. No matter how good your defense is, when you're playing a top team, you're going to give up points and yards, as we've seen when Alabama, Georgia play, when Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State, when all these top teams are playing, unless some fluky happens, like when Georgia just really had it dialed in on Texas and they looked like they were dumbfounded, just going to give up points and yards. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And then you brought up the part about punching somebody. Well, let's talk about Alabama and Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've been griping about Alabama and how undisciplined they are compared to what they've been the last several years and stuff. And
Last 17.
every week it just keeps showing itself, and now it's literally costing them games. You got a chance to, you got a 21-17 game. You got a chance to win. You got 2.5 minutes on the clock. I mean, you do have Jalen Monroe, and you got the world-class wide receiver, and a guy decides to punch a guy in the head. I mean,
yeah,
come on. I mean, what are you even thinking? And after that happens, there's just no repercussion to what you did. Get out there and get them, buddy.
yeah.
No, man,
Yeah.
you freaking just cost your team. I mean, they did get the ball back again, and the whole Jalen Monroe thing. I mean, this as well as anybody. I've never really been on board with him as a quarterback.
Yep.
Great human being, great guy, great athlete. But I mean, rewatching the game, I'm looking and I'm like, I don't know who got in his ear. What's going on here? He literally had 4 or 5 opportunities of a wide open lane, and yeah, and and on the SEC network, they were talking about. They said, well, there was a guy over here. I'm thinking, okay, now Jalen Monroe is one of the fastest guys in college football. Certainly, probably the fastest quarterback. Will I take him one-on-one against a defensive back every day? Every play, every day, and
some linebackers.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're just not going to catch him. But anyways, just the whole discipline thing and costing themselves games, and the play. It's like I'm going to show the world that I can throw the football. I just don't understand what's going on there, and I can't really blame him. I mean, I'm sure he's doing what he's
told to do,
coached to do, whatever. But wow, that was a tough one to watch. But I mean, I gotta say, Tennessee's defense was very impressive.
They have been at times this year, and then they've had their share of times where they didn't look all that great, but who hasn't? Just about everybody has in one manner or fashion, So it's an interesting year. There's no doubt. There's, in my opinion, I'm sure you agree, there is no clear cut number one. We have a number one team, but it's not clear cut. I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 teams like we talk about each week that really have a legitimate shot at being the best at any given day, and maybe the list is a little longer. I got this right here. I did this a couple weeks ago, so I updated it. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the ACC: Clemson, Miami, Pitt, SMU, all undefeated, with Duke and Virginia Tech one loss behind them. You got to figure the ACC championship is going to come on the top 5 teams. But you never know about Duke, probably not, but Virginia Tech plays pretty good, so you never know they could sneak up there. And that one loss we all know, was Miami Hurricane in the end zone of that game. So,
right, yeah,
they could easily be 3-0. And then look at the Big Ten. Who would ever thunk Indiana right up there at top? Totally different team. This isn't your dad's. This isn't my dad's Indiana team. This is a new team, new coach, and they are rock solid discipline. I watched film study today, and they absolutely run the triple option RPOs. Not the RPO triple option, that is, not just traditional triple option. And they're very disciplined. They're just they make you have to play the whole field side to side, and their defense is pretty stingy. So they don't play Oregon, I don't think, but we got Penn State at 3-0, or they're playing Wisconsin, and we'll talk about them. And then Illini, the Badgers, and Ohio State all sitting there with one loss. So any one of those teams can make it to the Big Ten championship game, in my opinion. I think next week, up at the Big 12, BYU and Iowa State, they play next week against each other, so they're going to figure that one out. If they both win this week. Yeah, and then the SEC, A&M and LSU at the top, and of course that's probably the big game we'll talk about tonight, because they play tomorrow, and that's tomorrow night, right. Big game, and that's huge. And then you got Georgia and Tennessee right behind them, and then of course Missouri. And unbelievable that on that list right there is not Alabama, because they got 2 losses.
Yeah,
and they're both in the SEC, and I think I read it was the first time they had 2 losses in the SEC before the month of November since like 2007 or something like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy. So let's get into the games this week.
Let's look what Indiana did to Nebraska.
Oh man, they I thought Nebraska was going to have more for that. I really did.
Well,
I know it was a road game, but yeah, and it makes me rethink. Okay, how good is Colorado? Because Nebraska destroyed them. But that was at Nebraska, and then just at IU. I thought this would be a closer game. By no stretch was this game close. IU killed them. I mean, dominated them from the jump. IU has not trailed in any game this year so far. It's amazing.
Well, they got the big boys coming, so we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, they got their let's see, starting this week. The games for them, I can't remember who they're playing tomorrow, but it's something we got to. Their games they have the 14th toughest schedule moving forward, where before the season, the first part of the season, it was a lot easier. So, and I ain't taking anything away from them. I have no idea what to expect from Indiana. I really don't. They're going to be fun to watch, and they won't surprise me at all if they beat everybody, including Ohio State, because they come to play, and their coach is not pull any punches. He's like, I win wherever I go. I think last year when he got to the basketball game after he got the job, he's like, because Purdue's the big rival in the end. He's like, yeah, Purdue sucks, but so does Ohio State and Michigan. He was at the Big Ten championship game, and he told the broadcasters, I plan on being here in a year at the championship game. So he ain't playing around.
No, absolutely not. But the only thing I'll say about that is, when you come up against a team with that much talent, that many more 5-star players, that many more 4-star players, it's going to be tough for them to compete. I mean, they're basically going to have to play a perfect game, error-free game to stay in it and maybe pull off an upset. But head-to-head, looking at it, it's going to be tough for them to compete with an Ohio State, possibly a Penn State. We'll see how all that goes. But yeah, coming up, we'll see.
Yeah, and it should be. But if you don't bring your good game, maybe not, I don't want to say maybe not your A game, because Indiana is not who we think they usually are. But basically, if you don't bring your best, and Indiana's there and they're playing their top, they might get you. You may not. They snap you by a field goal. Hey, a win's a win. But with this whole new system, there's no more helmet or there's no more signs. It's all the iPads and the helmet.
Right.
And I saw a big film study, and it's all disguises now. You literally, if you're showing what you're going to do at the line of scrimmage, they're going to get you because they've got it all on the iPads and they got it in the helmets. And, so you really got the best defenses are the ones that disguise. That's what Georgia was doing last week against Texas. Man, they're coming up looking one way and switching 2 or 3 seconds before the ball snapped.
Yeah,
and they lived in the back. I felt sorry. When Archie got in, you mentioned it. I felt sorry for him because I felt like if I was I'd be like, I got a cramp. I don't want to go in there. That was a buzzsaw.
And I mean, we look at it, and it's all about playing together. Being disciplined. Not making mistakes. I mean, that's what it's out. And that's when we see I'll use the word lesser team, maybe not as talented as a team,
Sure.
come in and knock somebody off. I mean, you can't tell me that Vanderbilt or even Tennessee has as much talent as Alabama does.
Right.
I mean, Alabama just kind of seems not really playing together, not disciplined, none of the things that we just talked about, or I just talked about, where you see Indiana doing those kind of things, like you were saying. You see in Alabama not doing those things at all. And they got to have as much talent as the top 5 teams in the country. I still believe, even with what transpired, with what they lost and all that, I get all that, but, still, that all that comes into play.
It comes down to coaching, developing, play calling, the scheme you're going, and the discipline of the team. And, I would go on to say, at this point, it looks like that Alabama is not quite the discipline that they are accustomed to under Saban. The different coach, DeBoer, and guys throwing punches and other stuff. The guy kicking wouldn't come out of the game. We all know what that would have happened if Saban was a coach. So, and I don't pick on DeBoer. He's the guy, that's fine. But I saw Saban today on the Pat McAfee show, and he was joking with Pat McAfee about controlling the guys on the show. And Pat's like, and Saban said, if you ain't coaching it, you're letting it happen. And that's a no truer words are spoken. Absolutely. Yeah. You listen to that and you're like, this guy knows what he's doing. If you ain't coaching it, then you're letting it happen. That's exactly
obviously,
right.
Obviously he knows what he's doing.
Yeah. There's no doubt about it. So, all right. First game. These are all noon games. That's why I got them up first. Nebraska, we talked about them a little bit. On the road at IU, get your butt kicked. Now you got to go on the IU to road to Ohio State.
Yeah.
And as a fan, I'm hoping it's a butt kicking as well for Ohio State. Then at the same time, I'm thinking, okay, Nebraska's going to be pretty ticked off, so maybe they're not going to play so bad. But who knows? I do think that the talent level chips in Ohio State's favor. So Ohio State coming off a bye and the loss to Oregon by 1 point, you got to figure they are drooling for blood. So this could be a pretty hard hitting game. We'll just see what happens. But I think we probably both feel like you expect this game to be maybe close for part of the first half, if not the first half, and then pull away or something like that of that nature.
First quarter, halfway through the first quarter or whatever, hang around. But that's going to be it.
Yeah, and if Ohio State is fortunate to jump all over them off the jump, that probably spells a bad day for Nebraska, because then it's just going to be they're throwing the ball like crazy. And I'm sure their quarterback's a fine guy, but he's definitely a true freshman. So, so we're both looking for Ohio State in that one, no doubt. And we got what's up here. IU is hosting Washington, coming off a big win against Nebraska. They got Washington, who I think is a better team than Nebraska, even though they lost a lot from last year, but they got the guy from Arizona, and they've had some nice wins. So I really don't think IU is going to lose this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Washington keeps it close, just because they're playing decent football this year. They're in games that they're not winning and stuff. So.
Right. Yeah. Being at home, and then, like I said, we just got done talking about IU and how they're playing together and discipline and all that kind of stuff. As long as they continue to do that and take care of business, they're going to be fine.
Yep. So we definitely look for them to move on. IU winning that one. And this is interesting because Ole Miss is probably at this point on the outside looking in the SEC. but and then OU is definitely so. Either one of these teams, they're probably both out of it, but whoever loses this game is really out of it. Ole Miss, if they have any chance, they gotta take the. They can't not win this game, and they're at home, so I'm thinking Ole Miss would probably going to win this. And I think OU, if Venables wants to save his job, I think he's probably on the hot seat. This is his third year in the system, and it's not getting any better. I know it's the first year in the SEC, but still, it's getting progressively worse each year that he's been there. So
yeah, and
first head coach job.
Yeah, and as the season gone, it seems to be more and more of a train wreck. Because it just keeps derailing for OU. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely give Ole Miss at home. I mean, Ole Miss have been very competitive even in their losses.
Yeah.
So there's times that OU is not even competitive at all. So
yeah, it's not been good,
right.
No doubt. Illinois going out west to the Ducks. Illinois played tough at Penn State. It was a close game, and towards the end, they had a chance, if you will. So, can they do it against the Ducks? Can Brett do it on the road like that against that team? I don't know. I want to say this game is closer than most people think. I think the line is ridiculous, from a betting standpoint. So, if you're doing the betting, I'd probably pick Illinois to cover. But at the same time, the Ducks could jump all over. They beat the absolute snot out of Purdue last week.
Yeah, they did.
Purdue didn't even get a point, but Purdue's really bad. So I don't think Oregon's going to falter in this one. If so, it's huge news, and it'll be another number one going down this year, which we've seen, I think, 3 of them so far. So,
yeah,
but I don't think it's gotten this week.
Yeah, that's going in, they're traveling out west, so we have all that thing. That's always tough to do, and for them to stay in it, it's a lot like how we talked about a lot of other teams that when they go in as a big underdog and stuff like that, you're going to have to win the turnover thing. You're going to have to play a clean game. You're going to have some horrible pass interference calls. All that good stuff. For you to. People throw stuff on the field and get things overturned.
That never happens.
Yeah. Then you got a chance.
Yeah. And look at it. Here, the Illinois is 3-1. And of course, the Ducks are right there at 4-0. If Illinois pulls off the upset, just for grins, they're tied with them for second place, and they got the tiebreaker. And then Ohio State's in there, and they don't have the tiebreaker against the Ducks because they lost to them. I don't think Ohio State plays Illinois this year. The tiebreakers are going to be crazy. So if you get some chaos in any of these 4 conferences, it's going to be really interesting. And one of them, I don't know how many tiebreakers deep into it you go. It comes down to a coin flip. I don't know if it's ever going to get that far, but that's pretty interesting. They could decide it by a coin flip.
They very well may, depending on how things play out. But yeah, it would take it would take an awful huge effort from Illinois to go out there and beat Oregon.
Yeah. Illinois, they're having a good season. They beat Michigan. It was a great game last week with those cool uniforms, those cool helmets. And, this would be a great win. But even if they don't win this game, it doesn't take anything away from what the season they're having after having a bad season last year. So they're doing really good, no doubt.
Yeah,
Alabama, Mizzou. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, we'll just go ahead and talk about that one.
Oh, I'm just saying this is Alabama. If they lose this, they're almost certainly done with the SEC championship game possibilities. But they're certainly not
done.
Well, I mean, mathematically, yeah, but you need a lot of weird things to happen for them to be back in the picture, especially who they've lost to and stuff. Georgia, and then they didn't, but Alabama's losing to Vanderbilt. Look bad when it happened. It's not look too bad now because Vandy's racking up some wins. It's starting to help Alabama become a CFP team. They need to run the table. One more loss, and they might have a trouble being a 3-loss SC team that gets in. Only because there's so many other SEC teams and teams in other conferences. So, but Mizzou is they pulled out a victory last week. I think they were losing, and they ended up winning. So
right.
This is a tough game. I really expect Alabama to win this game. Talent-wise, I think they're heavily more talented than Missouri. But Missouri's a disciplined team, not as much this year as they had hoped to be. They had a rough year. I think their quarterback's hurt, which really hurts their chances. I don't think he's playing.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Last week he left the game and came back and won it for him. So I don't know if he's playing or not. But, I I'm going to go with Alabama at home. If it was on the Missouri road, I'd probably take Missouri just because you really don't know what you're going to get from week to week with Alabama.
No, not right now. You don't. Like I said,
Yep.
they're getting into the thick of their schedule. So I mean, I certainly look for one more loss, coming from, along the way. But you're talking about that Vanderbilt loss. You know, doesn't look so bad right now. Well, I mean, after tomorrow, it could look real bad if Texas comes in and waxes Vanderbilt.
Right.
So then it's gonna look real bad again. So
the one thing Vanderbilt can do, not saying they will, but is they put long drives with a lot of plays. They eat a lot of clock, and they score. So if they can pull off stuff like that against Texas and then play some defense, you just never know. And it's at Vandy. Not like that's the greatest home field advantage, but at least they're in their own backyard. But the little gamesmanship with the net going up, so that'll be really interesting. Texas is going to come out, chomping at the bit, with the whole attitude. But that game looks really interesting. There's no doubt Texas and Vandy. But
I mean, let's remember Vandy has 2 losses.
Yep.
I mean,
and so does Bama.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. So then we got Texas and Vandy. Might as well just go right to that one.
Yeah.
Texas is. They can take a second loss, but they certainly don't want to. And they're going against Vandy for sure. They'll be just like Alabama if they end up losing this game. They both lost at Vandy, but that makes those losses look that much better because them beating those 2 teams when they were Texas will be number 1 when they play in somewhere else because Georgia, but
right.
Top teams nonetheless. Impressive year what Vanderbilt's been doing. There's no doubt, and this would be just as impressive as what they've already done, but we'll see. I really can't say. I really don't think it's going to happen because I just really don't know. Texas looked awful. Vanderbilt can tap into anything, and granted, they don't have the Georgia players unless they can suit them up in some different uniforms. But that
right, I don't believe that. I don't believe you're going to have the mismatch that Georgia had with Texas. They just had a huge matchup on the line of scrimmage. Georgia just dominated. I don't think Vandy's going to have that. Vandy certainly may stick around in this game and make it real interesting. Come right down to the end. I could actually see that happening.
Yes.
If it goes heavy one way or the other, I'm going to say it's going to be Texas.
Yeah, I'd be a little surprised if Texas blows them out. It's one because Vanderbilt's been playing soundly. I think I expect Texas to win. How they win, who knows? But the one thing Vanderbilt's got is they can rush the passer. They can get in the backfield. They lived in the backfield against Bama. And Ewers doesn't move around. He's kind of a pocket guy where Manning's got a little more legs to him. That might end up being something to look for if they can get back in the backfield on a regular basis and cause some disruptions and keep them from having a decent passing game and stopping the run. So, but that's you can say that about every game almost. So,
well, yeah, and we talked last week. We talking about it's all about matchups.
Yep.
The greatest offensive lineman in the world could get a bad matchup against Joe Smo. It's just the way it is because of the way he does things or whatever. I can't see Texas offensive line is pretty good. I can't see them being in a mismatch again, a week later against Vandy. I just think Georgia did some things. Vandy's been playing great and all that stuff, but they don't have a Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart does some good things. He makes great adjustments. They normally always play solid defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I would be surprised if Vandy pulls anything off here.
Yeah, that would be tremendous. I mean, we'll be talking about it, but yeah, I agree. I don't expect Vanderbilt to win this game, but you never know. And that's why they got to play.
You never know. That's sure. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying.
Right. Oh yeah.
Not likely.
Yeah, we both know better than that.
Yeah.
Now this game's interesting. One loss Notre Dame, who lost to Northern Illinois, but beat A&M against undefeated Navy, who's is ranked now. They were 6-0, I think. Army 6-0. They're both in the top 25 for the first time, and who knows, Eisenhower administration or something. This is on the road, and you know how it is playing Navy. You got to change your whole defense for a week and put in. Everybody's got to play their keys. The one thing with Notre Dame is they play Navy every year, so they're somewhat used to it because they know they got it. Doesn't make it any easier. And Navy, I think this year is a lot better than they have been. especially with that quarterback. Both the
Right.
the Army and Navy are throwing the ball a lot more than they usually do, and they're running that triple option. So I don't know about this one. Notre Dame's been playing really good, better than they have earlier. I think that they play NIU this week, they kill them. And then Navy is really good. This is a big, big game because Notre Dame with a second loss is just going to be that much harder to get in to the CFP because they're independent. They can't win a conference championship. Navy can, as a group of 5, win their conference, and if they're the highest ranked, they can get in as an automatic bid to the CFP because 5 conferences, 5 of them all get in. 4 of them, the top 4, are the ones that get the bye. So they can almost certainly get in and with an automatic, and maybe not get the bye because of the seeding they get. So big game.
Yeah, what happens here is, the teams that run that triple option, like you were saying, now you got to change your whole defense, the whole blocking thing and everything goes, it's something that, most teams haven't seen before. But like you said, I mean, Notre Dame plays them every year, and Navy is having a great season. Army, I think Army is better than Navy from what I've seen. They've kind of opened up everything that they do. But yeah, I mean, it's for Navy to stick around in this game because of the adjustments that Notre Dame's going to have to make to compete with them. Because everybody's spread offense. We're going to do this, going to do that, and then all of a sudden you have these teams that that they come in and we're going to run this, and they run it well, and that can give a team fits.
Oh, absolutely. You pretty much think that Notre Dame's got them on depth and overall talent, but discipline is huge in football on a team game. And I was listening to, I think, Bobby Carpenter on satellite radio was talking about, because Ohio State, back when he was there, they played Navy, and he's like, every guy on defense has to do his job. Your job is to take the dive. Your job is to take the swing, and if one guy misses it, Navy or Army, they make you pay, because that's what they do. So it's disciplined defense, and then you try to get ahead of them a couple touchdowns, because these teams for the most part don't do good at coming back on people from big deficits. Well, it might be they haven't had to do that this year. So
if you go way back, he's talking going way back. You could run into a guy named Roger Staubach that was the rumor is that he was pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, well, so anyway, yeah, you just like you said, I mean, just a complete different thing. Very, you would think right away, disciplined team. This is, Army, Navy. I mean, that's what you're going to get. So,
and he was a Heisman Trophy winner, I believe.
He was
for Navy. So yeah, I don't know if he's the last Navy guy to win a Heisman or not, but it might be, because that's how good he was. Of course, went on to win a couple of Super Bowls and Hall of Fame, and yeah, he's did pretty good. So. Final game as far as the graphics we have is Penn State, Wisconsin. This is interesting from the standpoint of Wisconsin seems to have found something. Earlier in the year, they were not playing good football.
Yeah.
Last 3 weeks, they haven't given up more than 7 points each. I think a total of 15 points in 3 games. And they're running the ball more. They're running it well, kind of typical Wisconsin ball. But they're still doing a little different with the offense and not just completely going back to the old Wisconsin Ron Dane offense. Right. Penn State's got to go on the road. Last time they went on the road at USC, it was looking ugly, but they were able to come back, which is good for them. But it was USC. But USC beat Wisconsin. But I think when they played Wisconsin wasn't what they are now. So this is big for Penn State being one of the undefeateds in the Big Ten. If Wisconsin can be spoiler here and making Penn State, take a loss, and all of a sudden then they can't take another one. Much like where Ohio State is right now. They got 1 loss. They play Penn State next weekend at Penn State. It's not a night out game, so it's a big noon game. So that favors Ohio State.
Right.
But Ohio State can't take if they lose to Penn State, that means their top 2 teams were Oregon and Penn State games, and they lost them both. That's not going to bode well for them, at all. Certainly getting in the Big Ten championship game, but let alone being a contender, even though the 2 teams they lost were highly ranked. So it's kind of a hoot, they have to wait and see what other teams are doing. So
right. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, Wisconsin can be crazy. And this is this at night? This is a night game.
Yeah.
So that's another interesting about it. Camp Randall, if you haven't watched Wisconsin at night, tune into this, especially in the third quarter when they get the whole jump around going on. The place is nuts. So if they're in the game and it gets the third quarter, it'll be nuts there at Camp Randall. So That's
Yeah,
one of the. There's two teams I hate playing at night. Penn State, as a Ohio State fan, Penn State and Wisconsin at night. I don't
oh
like playing
yeah,
those teams at night.
Penn State's really crazy.
Yeah.
The other game. I don't think you had it pop up here. The LSU Texas A&M game.
Wait a minute. This is here somewhere. Where's that at? Where's that at? Oh, wait a minute. No, hold on. I know I got that in there. Did I not?
No.
You know what? I wonder if it only lets me do 6 and I kicked one out. I'm going to get that one because that should be the main game. Oh, wait a minute. Show more. Hold on. Let me see what's down here.
Yeah. Anyways, the LSU Texas A&M.
There it is.
That should be a heck of a game. How could you leave that one out? Jeez.
Well, it was. I had to hit show more, and it just showed me because it is hiding it from me, the system.
Right.
So
this is that.
Yeah, this is the marquee game. Absolutely, marquee game.
So both of these schools, I mean, huge home field advantage. You don't want to play at LSU. You don't want to play at Texas A&M. So the home team should certainly have an advantage. LSU has, Texas A&M lost that first game, and then they seem to be rolling. LSU just seems to be getting by week by week by week. You think, oh man, they're going down, and then in the last couple minutes of the game, they come back and win it. I mean, that's happened. That's happened a few times this year with them. It happened last week, as a matter of fact. They just keep hanging around, then they end up coming back winning the game. So going to Texas A&M, pretty interesting. Texas A&M, after I watched the Notre Dame Texas A&M game, and I thought, well, Texas A&M going to have a long season. Well, I mean, they've turned things around drastically. So this would probably be a real interesting game to watch, just to get a real good idea of which one of these teams is going to make the most noise, headed towards a possible SEC championship.
Yeah, both undefeated in the SEC. Both of them lost. So the A&M lost to Notre Dame, and LSU lost to USC. So both of them have a out of conference loss, but they're undefeated in the SEC. So this is SEC supremacy on the line. Whoever wins this game is just that much closer to guaranteeing they'll be in the SEC championship game. Still ways to go, but it's a leg up on the other. And personally, I take the home team in this game, so I'll take A&M because it's both places, like you said, are nuts to play. Both teams can play on the road, but this will be the craziest environment you'll see tomorrow. As bad, Camp Randall is crazy in the third quarter. Penn State's at night, and they're not at night tomorrow, or they are at night tomorrow, but they're on the road during Camp Randall.
Yeah.
Either one of these home teams at night, A&M, LSU, absolutely nuts. It'll be louder than anything you've ever heard, hard hitting, and I'm just going to take A&M. Plus, I think that makes you a little happy because you hate LSU more than A&M, right?
Oh yeah, but I still say, LSU's got it done, but they have 2 wins. I'm like, I don't even know how they got them. I honestly don't. I'm like, they're beat, man. There's only a little bit left, and something crazy happens, and they ended up come back and winning. They've had that happen, a few times this year. So they're pretty fortunate to be where they're at.
Yeah, they are. The LSU is it's almost. They're not really flying under the radar, but so many other things being talked about with Alabama and Georgia's game, Georgia and Texas game, Texas, and then you got Tennessee, and then LSU is just sitting there going, "Hey guys, don't forget us. We're undefeated." And the same with A&M. So interesting to say the least. Good game. Great game. I'm glad it's at night, to watch football all day and then end the day on this one, not counting West Coast games at 10 o'clock. But this is a hard hitting one. And this will have all kinds of things to say about the SEC, going forward. Without that, because we know LSU plays Alabama, so Alabama will have something to say about what happens to LSU as well as A&M. So very interesting.
Just a week ago, not last week before, you had the LSU Ole Miss game, which came down to overtime, and I thought for sure Ole Miss had that game at one point. I'm like, how do you let this thing slip away? But they did. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely.
We'll see what happens at A&M.
Yeah, no doubt. All righty. Well, that's all we got for this week. You got anything else you want to talk about, or?
Well, it'll be an interesting week and interesting times coming up with all the matchups and teams getting into the thick of their schedule, and we can start making shape of how these conference championships are going to start working out. So yeah, be real interested. Like you were saying, I'm sure we're going to get into it. We're going to get into some crazy stuff before it's all said and done, and tiebreakers and this and that and everything. For that conference championship, and that's certainly a plus. To be able to get that bye. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, next week on Friday we'll be in November, so the following Tuesday is the first CFP. So next week we'll be talking about heading into the weekend and then coming out of that, the CFP, the first rankings. The interesting thing, the tiebreakers are going to be really interesting in all the conference championships, and then the first four teams get a bye, the conference winners. The next four ranked teams, man, they get home games, and I just think that's going to really be interesting for those teams getting that home game, almost momentum in a certain way for one of the teams potentially coming out, getting that, they didn't make the championship game, but they get this home game and they just the crowd into it, they win and they head on. It's going to be fun. It's going to be really interesting.
Well, depending on who those teams are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like we just said, there's some places, man. You get a Penn State, an LSU, an A&M, or one of those kind of teams. Getting a home game, like that. I mean, that's just a you have an advantage when you're home in college football, period. But then you throw all that extra crap in there. It's at a handful of those places, and you just do not want to go there.
Yeah. You don't want to play LSU, Penn State, Tennessee, and the other ones, and there are those huge stadiums. It's just nuts.
Oregon comes to mind.
Oregon's loud. Yep, absolutely.
Texas A&M, LSU, Penn State, Oregon. I mean, I'm sure. I mean, we're probably missing a couple, but there's just some places that
Tennessee for sure. Yeah, Tennessee's a super loud place. I mean, the Buckeyes place is huge. But I've never felt like it's been a crazy stadium, but it can be. So when you get into this and it's all of a sudden college playoff, that may change everything. So
yeah. I mean, I mean, not against Ohio State. I mean, their fans are really into it. They sell out and everything else, but that stadium is just not as loud. With the way it's designed and stuff, it's just not as loud as some of those other places. Some of them, they're talking about Tennessee, how loud it was there. But they also say, I don't know if it's true, they say that it is, that they also piped in even more music, crowd noise, on top of the crazy crowd noise that was already going on.
Right.
I mean, I literally watched Alabama turn into Tennessee because, in the past you had, Tennessee throwing stuff on the field, doing this and that, the guy running in the end zone with, flipping off the crowd and just doing stupid stuff, that would cost them a game. And now, it's like they've traded places. Now Alabama's doing all that stupid stuff.
Yeah, you hate to see that. And I mean, I would hope that everybody would hate to see any of that stuff. I was on a forum a couple weeks ago talking about, after Oregon beat Ohio State, there's so many fans are like jumping off the bridge, fire this guy. I'm thinking, dude, we lost to a top team by 1 point and had a chance to win it. What are you freaking out about? This happens in football. Saban kick six, anybody? I mean, Saban's no stranger to losing by a point, losing on the last play of the game. It happens, And
they call for his head,
Yeah.
People are just idiots. Some people, these are just keyboard warriors. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's, so I'm like, I lived through the Cooper years, every one of them. And I remember towards the end when they finally, and I say it with a passion, finally fired him. I wanted him gone years before they did because he just could not beat Michigan. He couldn't win a bowl game. And I'm not talking 1, 2, or 3. This guy had like a 10-year losing record to Michigan. Yeah. And we always had the better team. And we played Michigan, and we put most Ohio State fans to tell you, we put Tim Biakapatuka into the NFL by giving him 280-something yards rushing against us. He was nobody before he ran against Ohio State. But they go to the bowl game against Lou Holtz, South Carolina Gamecocks, and they're cheap-shotting guys. And they cheap-shotted a guy that scored a touchdown in the end zone. The dude was from Ohio, and Ohio State didn't recruit him. And I'm like, you know what? This is ugly. I don't even get rid of everybody. Get a new squad in here. And when they finally got Tressel, I had no idea who he was. And all I said was, I don't care if we lose every game next year. I just want to beat Michigan. That's all I cared about, and Tressel brought respect back to the program. And that's what you want to see, teams that lose with dignity and win with pride. That's what it's all about. All this undignified stuff just really is disgusting. So
right.
That's my
Absolutely.
rant.
Well, I'm sure we'll be talking during the games, man. Everybody tune in. It'll be a good one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. All right, we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for being with us. Like on Facebook, hit the bell, and subscribe on YouTube. And enjoy the games tomorrow, and we will see you guys